Welcome to the VŌC Podcast. Get down on your knees and bark like a dog.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the VŌC Podcast, in which I'll be interviewing professional voice actress, director, casting director, and my friend, Lani Minella. Lani, thank you so much for coming on. How are you doing today?
Great. And yourself?
Well, thank you. I'm doing okay. The weather over here is a bit over the edge, but
Wow.
other than that, it's fine.
I'd be glad to send you some of our lovely, sunny, warm, hot San Diego weather if I could.
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let's see. We're here to speak about voiceover. And you've been in the industry for how long?
Dinosaurs were roaming the earth.
Pretty long. Pretty
Yeah,
long.
yeah.
Well, did you do anything else before you started
Oh
out in
gosh,
voiceover?
yes. I mean, after going to school, I worked 8 years managing a high-end stereo store, 3 years at Warehouse Records, managing that, several different stores. I even in college, I worked for something called Ocean Toe Boutique, which sold everything from clothes that you could design to head shop stuff. And I did real estate for 4 years. So yeah, uh, quite a lot of other things. And we have to. And that's what I say to anybody, which is part of possibly what you're going to ask later, is advice to anyone trying to begin the voiceover industry, and that is don't quit your day job. It probably isn't going to support you to pay your bills. You have to have another type of source of income usually.
It is sort of fascinating how you went from all these things you've done before, from managing a store and everything to voiceover. So how did that come along?
Uh, let's see. I believe that okay, the truth behind what really got me into the radio was I had this station, Cutting Edge Rock Station, 91X, who was broadcasting from Tijuana, and really great, music. This is in the late 80s, and I always wanted to work there. But then I get a call from someone there saying, "You won our answering machine contest." Huh? I mean, I never even entered it. Somebody entered, and this is in the days when you had the cassettes, and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing. And I had recorded something with Dr. Ruth Westheimer, which was a known sexual psychologist. Hello, Dr. Ruth here. And then the guy named the Big Bopper, hello, baby. So it was just a little bit of a skit between those. And I guess they said, come on down to this nightclub and pick up your free t-shirt. Okay. So I did, and they said, "Do you do any other voices?" I went, "Yeah." And they said, "Could we call you sometime during our morning show to let you could be on it and help us out?" So I did that for about a year. They would call me like at 5 o'clock in the morning because the morning show starts. We get there at 4:30 in the morning. It goes to 9. So it would
Mm-hmm.
be all kinds of that kind of deal. Finally, the woman Katie Manor, which is now Kate Dearborn, she asked Mad Max, who was the program director and the other male counterpart on the morning show, if we could hire me as a producer to help her out. So I ended up being on the radio in the morning drive, and somebody heard me from GT Magitrek, I think it was, and said, "We'd like you to come up and record some Fern Gully from the movie." Hadn't seen it, voices. So we
Mm-hmm.
are pitching the Laserdisc to Philips and Magnavox way back, Laserdisc time. And so I did that. But so I was on the radio. And then when I was there, they said, "Why don't you go downstairs? We have some kids' CD-ROMs." I didn't even know what a CD-ROM was. And so I
Mm-hmm.
started doing many voices for these kind of like Where's Waldo? They give you a rhyming clue, and you had to be the voice of a lampshade or an eraser or anything like that. And I said, "Who else does this?" "I don't know." I said, "Well, who would know? Why don't you go to the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas?" Okay. I did that for 2 years, trucked my cassettes and my demo whenever. And then I went to the Game Developers Conference for a couple of years. I went to 13 years of E3s, but I ended up at one E3. This is how I got into games. Um, I was waiting for the demonstrator to finish so I could say, "Hey, who does your casting?" And a girl behind me and I said, "We do voices, and we could help you with casting." "I do voices too." And a little light went off in my head. Hmm. This is not usually a producer at these shows because it's usually just somebody demonstrating the game. They're not people that cast that attend these shows. So I
Hmm.
said, why don't I start a one-stop shop? Because otherwise, people are going to think you have to use everybody in Los Angeles or whatever. So I managed to get all of the people, the best talent from all around the world, including yourself, and uh, and have a one-stop shop where we could provide the editing, the music, the script writing, the actors without an agency fee or problems, that kind of thing. And
Hmm.
that's how that started, probably in about 92.
Okay. So you were already doing voices when you created Audio Gods, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that is amazing to hear. And I mean, what Audio Gods does, not many companies do that. And you have a great talent pool as well.
Yeah.
Could you name any popular projects or games that Audio Gods has helped out with?
Well, I do have 500 titles. So, I mean, as far as casting, you mean, like Neverwinter, Star
Mm-hmm.
Trek Online. We've done all kind of like Sonic Adventure, Adventure 2, Heroes Battle. I mean, those are all completely cast with us, but there's just an enormous amount that we have done. Uh,
Yeah.
so I could just go on and on, but that would take too long.
Well, wow. I mean, yeah, over 500 titles, that's really something. Let's get back a bit to voiceover and your voice roles. I mean, do you ever um, do you have a favorite role? Someone, a character that you really enjoyed voicing, either because it was memorable or anything of that sort?
Actually, that's a hard question because every job we do doesn't have a lot of lead up. If it comes to game voices, we're never told the game. We don't know our part in the game usually. And
Hmm.
so we're given jobs like boom. And then maybe later, like with Sindel, Shiva, whatever, for Mortal Kombat, then I go back and I see it on YouTube. I go, oh my God. Or even Ivy from Soul Calibur. We don't know anything about
Yeah,
it when we do it. So then if we go back and take the time, because I'm not a gamer, so I can't play the game, but the game isn't done, by the time we're doing our
of
voices, it
course.
hasn't been done yet. So I think that overall, I love doing the creature voices, the end bosses, a lot of the Blizzard stuff, that
Hmm.
was pretty memorable for World of Warcraft and Diablo 1, 2, 4, and StarCraft as a dropship pilot and medevac pilot in the 5x5. I copy that. Those are interesting for me to do. And of course, you've got the iconic ones like Nancy Drew, and that has,
Hmm.
I think it was 31 games in 16 years. So that's quite a long standing thing. So I'm grateful for anything I can do. And of course, you were going to ask me about Bubsy. So I'm going to talk about memorable in a different way. Memorable in the way like, ow, it hurts me to do this. Uh, the two ones that stand out that are sort of similar were Bubsy and Bloopy's Buddies, which was a public broadcasting show with many series that starred Jonathan Winters, which is a well-known, now dead comedian. And so I was the voice of Bloopy. It's time to get off your feet for the energy beat. It's time to Bloopy side. And I was also Sergeant Lookout, which was a policeman. They were all in these green egg costumes, and so there'd be somebody in the costume moving their hands to move the mouth that was down there. They were doing that to the pre-recorded me. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
they also played me a voice, just like the Bubsy people in the Bay Area played me a voice and said, "We're looking for someone to sound like this." And I was going, "Ow!" It even hurt me to do the voices. Bubsy. Oh God, shut up. So it was really annoying, and yet with Bloopy, I think kids like annoying things. And what has happened over the years is the soccer moms, the content supervisors, they get too controlling and they start saying, oh, we can't scare the kids. Oh, we can't do this. So they start rounding out the edges of all the playground equipment. Like when we went to school, your slides were stainless steel. You know what I mean? Your stuff was, it could hurt you. And nowadays everything is like plastic and safe and everything like that. But kids love to be
Yeah.
scared. They really love to be scared. So in the idea of Bloopy, I would have parents call me up and say, "Can you talk to my kid as Bloopy and make him eat his broccoli?"
Oh, really? You've had
Yeah.
requests of,
Hmm.
wow. I
So
mean,
it was the idea of that whole TV show was to get off your feet to the energy beat and move. They didn't want kids just glued to the TV set. So you would have the jumping gym shoe, you would have a cooking part of it, you'd have, kids, but every now and then they break to the part, get off your feet, so that was the goal of Bloopy. With Bubsy, see, and again, with all these games that I've done voices for, we don't know the game. The only thing we are pretty much going to ask is this in stealth mode? Is this projected? Is this over battle noise? That's about all we know. There's very few cutscenes, so there's very little context.
especially in these older games, there were no cutscenes at all,
And
mostly.
now I think they take them away. And then in the older games, like when we did Die Hard Trilogy, and I helped cast that too, um, we had to differentiate between being hit by a bullet, a grenade, or a rocket launcher. I mean,
Oh.
and then in those days, also, our emotes, our exertions could be action specific, being bonked on the head or slit throat, you know, uh, dying by fire. I'm not going to go through all these, but the idea was now it's been relegated to light, medium, heavy attack, light, medium, heavy being hurt, death, jumping, how far, I mean, it's so just so that they can repeat. And I think that's due to a lot of the melee that happens in a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
MMORPGs, that nothing can, you're not watching a specific stroke of a weapon. Everybody's just ganging up on the end boss, So that's part of the issue now is we can't have quite as much fun. But I always ask, what weapons could I be attacking with? What choices, or what
Mm-hmm.
can I be hurt by? Because I remember when I did Ivy, I think it was for the second or third, whatever I started with. I remember I was up at Cup of Tea Productions in Los Angeles, and they had played me a voice that they wanted me to kind of imitate. And then it came to the exertions, and this Japanese guy comes in and he says, "Okay, so these are light ones, like you hit by a knife, and they go like." "Huh, huh, huh, huh." And so I just kind of went, and he go, "Oh, you have done this before?" Yeah, yeah. So they were kind of surprised at that. But the other thing too that I'll give as advice, I know I'm kind of jumping the gun on things. I'm covering many things, but I think it'll work out in the end. Um, is that exertions? A lot of people tend to end on the same open vowel. Like when you're hurt, you're usually a vowel sound, but you don't want to go a e I o u, But you're going but many people keep with the So you've got to try and find different things like, do different things than just And that brings us to what you had to also do for Ready or Not, as I know you will remember. Some of the longest exertions I've ever had to deal with, up to 15 to 20 seconds, which is highly unusual. And it was my job to try and give different ideas so that it wouldn't just be like writhing on the ground. Okay, now you're stabbed in the eye, to help people get through that
Yeah.
long of a take without just going, ah. And by the way, we couldn't cry. Remember why? Because it sounds like laughing sometimes when you go, ah. So that could sound like a laugh. So we couldn't even cry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember. I mean, it was interesting. Since we, started speaking of the exertions and the pain
Yeah.
sounds, it was rather fascinating. I also never had to deal with such long pain sounds, and I had no idea how it sounds to be blinded by a flash
Flash.
grenade.
We had
But
Flash. We had the the bang, we had the taser, we had the
Yeah.
other. There's so many different ones, and that was again 2 to 3 takes of those long exertions is enough to probably ruin anybody's voice. Which again, another bit of advice. People are always asking, what can you do to improve vocal health or to safeguard hurting your voice? Don't get in the game industry. It's like
Well,
there are people will tell you there are exercises or whatever, but when you start projecting and doing the deaths and the big stuff, there is no way to protect unless you just say, I need a break, you know, or once your throat starts to swell up, drinking anything warm, including warm water, will help a little. But all those things recommending honey or tea or throat coat or anything like that, not going to help. Once you start
mhm.
sounding like Joan Rivers, you're going to be talking like this because your throat is all swollen. So always do the exertions at the end. You know, that's the trick. And if people,
Yeah.
if they want 3 in a row, I mean, you can do that. That's for sure. But again, I think that most of the time, you just don't want to hold back because we just did another version of Neverwinter. And these were pre-battle attacks, meaning they're not saying something as they're attacking. They're giving a warning, like, I'll eat you, you know, and then they're going to attack.
Oh, okay.
So these would be trolls or gnomes or kobolds or, you know, different types of giants and what have you. So they would be the maximum 3 seconds long. And what we kept getting from some people was that they needed to push harder. And no, so what people do is they don't want to clip on the volume, right? They don't want to
Yeah.
distort. So they're trying to use their voice quieter. So, no, take your volume down. Keep putting the volume down so that you have all the room to yell as loud as you need to.
Yeah, I mean, I do that. Whenever I know there's like a loud
Hmm.
sound, either a yell or anything of that sort, I always lower my volume. I mean,
Right.
that's the whole
And
point. I don't want to clip either.
okay, and you're never going to be able to pre-guess where that is because maybe somebody will direct you. No, we need it even louder. So just be prepared to say, "Let me check again. Let me readjust."
Hmm.
But don't ever try to hold back. I'm sure you can sound like you're screaming without screaming. But no, they really want you to and use your body. There's another bit of advice. Always use your gestures, that kind of a thing. It helps if your voice is tied to your gestures. Otherwise, you're going to sound very stiff. Wah! Isn't as good as Wah! You know what I mean? That's it. You put that extra energy when you're using your whole body and your face. You know, there's different facial positions to get more masculine sound. You put your lips out. Okay. Example: if I was to be a little kid, if I'm a girl, I could keep my lips close to my mouth. No, all of a sudden I put my lips forward and I sound more like a boy. So if you're going to be a tough character, 2 things will help the most. Keep your lips forward. If you have a tusky orc, you can lower your lower jaw out. But also, um, the idea is to hit your consonants. You know, go ahead, make my day. So go ahead, make my day. I'm gonna eat you. Or even about that, the hitting the harshness will make you sound tougher. There's another tip.
Wow. I mean, just getting back to the vocal health thing, I mean, it's crazy because I've listened to, of course, characters you've done many, many years ago, and if I compare your then voice with what you currently have, I mean, not much has changed. So you really kept your vocal cords in shape.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I know I've had one person call me that knew me like 30 something years ago, and they go, why do you still sound the same? Well, what am I supposed to have been, smoking and drinking and sound like this now? I mean, it's just, I think it's probably the usage keeps it up, even though as we get older,
Yeah.
our voices will sag, our vocal cords will stretch and sag. So it's, but just the usage of it probably keeps one uh, more in the range of what they used to be. I don't know. I guess I'm just lucky.
all that absolutely clipped out, but I
Oh,
think that everyone
okay.
will understand the point. But yeah, I mean, I found it fascinating because you've done the clickers in The Last of Us, and all sorts of monster voices for it and whatnot, and it's fascinating. We can talk a bit about The Last of Us if you'd like to. You've done the clickers over there, and I think the bloaters, maybe.
The funny story is about how I was hired to go to LA to do something I didn't know what. And I walk in because somebody from Blizzard had recommended me for the infected. And again, I knew nothing about the game. And I said, "So what am I here for?" And they put a rubber cap on my head. When you're moving and exerting a lot, as we all know, if you want to stay warm, you can put a knit cap on because it'll keep your
Mm-hmm.
head warm. But when you put a rubber cap on that has no breathing ability, and they put two lavalier mics like right here on the cap, um, so that I'm like, what? Huh? Why? Ugh. I wasn't trying to be difficult, but I got overheated. My heart started moving really fast, and they would show me a stick figure drawing of somebody up, down, falling over, maybe throwing up, grabbing their head. It lasted for about 2 minutes, and it was again, they just wanted me to loop over somebody, and the only thing they showed me on YouTube was some zombie thing where people were moving really fast, like on their hands and knees. It wasn't like the slow zombies, you know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? So they're saying it's kind of like that. So I would go through that whole thing and I was doing every sound. Oh, you don't have to hit every cue, but I did. And then on the way home, well, I said, by the way, before I finished, I said, because our hour is up, I can do a lot creepier things than just this. Oh, really? Okay. Well, we have these things called clickers, and they echolocate because they really can't see because it's a bunch of cordyceps mushroom growths all over their head. And
Mm-hmm.
so imagine that there's a human strapped to a table, and you and your clicker friends are around the table, and you want to have sex with them. Okay. Uh, I mean, so I did this, but they says, "Oh, that was really cool. We'll get back here now. This is for Last of Us One." And on my way home to back to San Diego, I get a call from my agent, and she said they want you for the bloater, and in 2 days. And it's quite a long drive from San Diego to LA. It's about a 6, 7 hour round trip. And so I said, could we arrange to do it in San Diego? We'll find out. So yes, they arranged to have it at Bill Corkery's studio in San Diego, where I love recording too. And as I walk in, they said, we imagine a marine mammal type of sound, like a male seal having sex. What's with this having sex stuff? You know what I mean? So I
Yeah,
told them,
like what the hell?
I said, well, I've watched a lot of natural programs like Nat Geo, whatever, and I know that male
Mm-hmm.
seals only make sounds when they're battling other males for the harem. They don't, have orgasmic sex sounds. So I had to make up, you know, orgasmic male seal sounds for the bloater. And then for Last of Us 2, they brought me in to do clicker stuff. So that was the next game.
I believe you haven't done anything for the TV series, right?
Instead, they used the Misty Lee and the male audio guy because
Mm-hmm.
the clicker, they said, we want to remain loyal to whoever was in the first Last of Us. So since they only had the clicker sounds and I was on The Last of Us 2, that's where I got left out. However, Universal did buy out my sounds when they had their Halloween show thing going on with Last of Us. So I was still used for an amusement park feature.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know about that. That is really cool to know.
Yeah.
I want to get a bit away from the monster sounds. We'll get back to it, but right now I want to focus on a very old game that I believe you directed, Duke Nukem.
Hmm.
I think you also did the casting for Duke Nukem, right?
Yeah, there weren't many characters, primarily Duke and some females, which
Yeah.
I helped to play. Yeah.
Yeah, Duke was voiced by John St. John, whom you know personally and worked with him on, well, a few titles, as
Yeah.
I've seen.
Mhm.
And, well, I want you to tell me a bit about the whole Duke Nukem thing.
George Broussard, who owned Apogee 3D Realms, just contacted me and said, "We're looking for a voice for this new character." And I'm imagining something from Full Metal Jacket. And he sent me like a sound file. And I happened to be working with John at a radio station for something. And I said, "This is really easy. You can do this, right?" "Sure." And he did it and he got the part. I mean, there might have been a little back and forth thing, but that's
Hmm.
as simple as it was. There was nobody auditioning against him.
But I guess, I mean, if we consider Duke Nukem, I mean, he to this day, the character is a pop icon,
Hmm.
if we can say it that way.
Well,
And
back in those days,
yeah,
people were downloading his "Come Get Some" for computer prompts. When when you
yeah.
used to be able to record stuff when your computer turned on or you did something like that, that he was considered kind of one of the first quote unquote, I'd say risque, not rated G, PG, a little bit more
Hmm.
gnarly. So that was the beginning. But they kind of ripped off the lines from, now I can't think of it. But they were kind of stealing lines from another movie, Evil Dead, I don't know, something like that.
Could have been.
Yeah.
I'm
So
not sure. But getting back to computer prompts, actually, it's funny. I don't want to talk a whole lot about it, but you did this one voice for Unreal Tournament, and there's many things around Epic Games right now, so I don't want to get too much into it. But actually, people used your sexy announcer voice lines of from Unreal Tournament
Killing
for other
spree.
games and in
Humiliating
matches
defeat.
and as computer
Multi-kill.
prompts. Have you had any knowledge about that? Because those voice lines are actually pretty popular.
I have no knowledge of where else they were used. I wish I could say yes, but I mean, when I recorded those prompts, it was part of maybe four other voices: soccer mom, British voice, dominatrix, sexual, you know what I mean? So I don't know if they still left it so you could choose what you wanted, but
Hmm.
then somebody pointed it to me that it was a clip of them on YouTube, which was kind of embarrassing. Um, so, yeah, I heard it and I went, "Oh my God, they use that." So that was all my knowledge of it. We seldom know what happens, especially nowadays with AI. There's no way to know what
Hmm.
happens to our stuff.
Oh yeah, it is sort of sad.
Yeah.
But the things you've already recorded in the past, I mean, it's nice that they stick around.
Yeah. It's all a blur because when we do a job, we are sometimes, like I say, I've been brought up to LA to work for Blizzard. It could have been Hearthstone, it could have been World of Warcraft, whatever. Um, and I will get the script as I'm waiting in the lobby. And then I'll get into the room and they'll, "Okay, here's a picture of who we want you to do." It's like instant. You have to be able to just go dunk and do it, which that's what separates the more professionals. Is also you have to have voice control because if they choose a voice you're just coming up with, looking at this thing, you have to be able to maintain it, probably yell as an attack, be able to do your exertions in that voice and everything else. So, yeah, I always have said this: if you don't like a performance, I don't care if it's a movie, TV show, game, cartoon, blame the script first. Blame the director second. Blame the actor last. Because there's only so much you can do with a crappy script.
Since we spoke about Duke Nukem, there's another pretty old game you've done some voices for. You may not even remember Half-Life. I'm not sure if at the time when you did Duke Nukem, if Gearbox was already working on that or not.
I don't think so. Not in the beginning.
Okay. Oh, yes, that's true because actually Gearbox started with Half-Life. Okay, that makes more sense now, yeah. Well, anyway, you've done a character called Colette Green for that game. And I just want to bring this up because, as you may remember, I have reached out to you a couple of
Hmm.
years back with a request for you to do the voice of Colette for a fan-made project.
Right? And all I remember is the weird laugh. She really had a strange laugh. You were kind enough to provide me references. But again, when I was contacted by Randy Pitchford from Gearbox, I don't believe he made a big deal out of it. I think it was maybe to not pay me much, if anything. And so I have a couple of female parts. Do you mind doing them? And he just sent me some lines and I did them. And it was that little knowledge that I had of the whole thing.
Okay. Years later, many, many years later, well, I reach out to you, and then you joined also Lambda Generation,
Hmm.
the Half-Life social media site. And what I want to get to is, what do you think of the longevity of games in general, like Half-Life or Duke Nukem, especially when we're speaking about such unimportant parts you've done, which are not, because these are not popular parts,
Hmm.
and that's a fact.
Yeah.
But you still get remembered for these parts. Like, what is your opinion on this?
It all depends on the fandom and what makes the fans keep something in perpetuity is beyond me. I think it starts with somebody saying like, "Hey, this is cool," and somebody does a mod, somebody else does another mod. I couldn't tell you because the tools are better now, and the graphics are better now. Everything is can be done better, and I know that also it's like cosplay. People can really love to do that and do remarkable amounts of work, expenditure, and materials to do way over the top cosplay. So there's several niches of popularity, whether it's furries, like mascots up and or the cosplay or the people doing mods. It just opens up a whole world for people to be able to do whatever it is that I think they want to. And it's great. It's great to have longevity in things and not too many things do. Um, I feel very sorry for so many layoffs that have happened in the industry. It's made it really tough. And as you mentioned, the most recent one with Epic, because that's where we started with the Unreal tournaments and things of that nature. And they do Fortnite and everything else. I have no reason. I can't tell you the logic, but I do know one of the things that happened with Embracer Group, which was a big publisher, is they originally were going to get a huge investment from some Saudi person, thing, company, whatever it
Hmm.
was, and they didn't get it. But in the meantime, before they found out they weren't going to get it, they bought up all these companies and these developers. And then they found out, hey, the money's not there. And then they started dumping everything. Happened to Cryptic. Cryptic, which we do the Star Trek Online, Neverwinter. There was Magic the Gathering also at that time. They got given to a mobile game company in Europe. And
Oh.
just now, they're weaning away because they have their original CEO come back and they're bringing back some of the original people that worked at Cryptic. So it's all in a transition kind of thing. But there were so many people that got laid off, so many companies that got closed because of Embracer. But they're not the only thing. Activision had a bunch of layoffs. So everybody underwent this whole thing. So it's a tough business. People who had great longevity are now looking for a job.
You've not only done Half-Life mods, but also Nancy Drew things and well, many other mods as well. So you definitely could see that, the fandoms of these well, various genres make their own games or own versions. And I was surprised to see that because I've only ever come across Half-Life mods. But you've done Nancy Drew things, you've done
Not
what else
Nancy
did you
Drew
do?
mods, no. I do voice recording when people and fans have asked me to do like a little tiny bit of a Nancy thing that they have written for maybe an engagement, a graduation, something of that nature. I did that for people as gratis. But there's another game coming out that's independently being done called
Hmm.
Amelia Darnell. And I agreed after I got kicked out of Nancy and her interactive to do the voice of that main detective, which is still a point and click action like the original Nancy Drew games were, in the Nancy Drew voice. So that's to come.
Okay, so it's pretty much Nancy Drew under a different name.
Amelia Darnell. Hmm.
Hmm. Well, I'm sure the fans will be looking forward to that, especially the Nancy Drew fans.
Yeah,
I've never played a Nancy Drew game in my life,
it's okay.
but
I mean, it was
I,
originally meant for girls. It was one of the first games that was like Simon and Schuster and whatever, forgot the original names, were designing for girls about 8 to 15 years old. And yet other people liked them too, but it was originally designed for girls. So when I tried, and I don't have time to play many games, so I tried, I said, okay, I'm going to play one Nancy Drew game from beginning to end. It was Secrets of Shadow Ranch. And because I
Mhm.
could be done with a PC and not some, you know, Xbox or PlayStation that I didn't have to assign buttons to, etc., I decided to do that. It was a little frustrating because sometimes what you had to accomplish wasn't even available to you. Like pick up the branch in the path. The branch wouldn't appear until you'd spent hours walking in the same path. Pick the ripe tomatoes and bring them to the farmer. The bush had no ripe tomatoes. So you had to, spend time going back and forth. That drove me nuts. And especially it was surprising when I got to the end, having spent about 40 hours, and there was no ta-da, you won, or it's over. It was just like done. And thank God they had an automatic save your game thing because I had no idea about how to save games. And one time I tried to listen to my Zerg Queen, and the Zerg when it was in StarCraft, and I had played it with all the cheat codes and getting rid of the fog of war, and I'd gotten through all these levels and everything, and finally it said deposit the queen's cocoon into the enemy headquarters, but I had blown up everything and I had not saved the game. So I just took the CD out and threw it next, up against a wall. So yeah, I can honestly say I'm not a gamer. I mean, I know enough and I've seen enough of what goes on in the game, but as a voice actor, you're not privy to the information as to what's the game all about. Even as Nancy Drew, I would not find out who the culprit was until the end when I was giving the summation. So
Hmm.
it's kind of like going through something blinding the best that you can, and good luck.
Well, maybe it was a bit more real that way, considering, Nancy Drew was this detective who was looking for, like signs and everything to catch the culprit. So as it's almost as if you actually were Nancy Drew.
Yeah, but see, this is the thing that killed me. Um, in those days, when I did all those games, I was told Nancy could not be cool. She couldn't say slang words like like whoa, oh, or something like that. She couldn't believe in anything supernatural. She could never be accusatory when interviewing somebody. Like, are you sure you didn't go? No. Are you sure you didn't? Goody two shoes. You know what I mean? Which I guess that
Hmm.
was what they wanted. Now with the new one, I think all that's gone. So I'll say no more about that.
I want to get to Mortal Kombat.
Okay.
Because, I mean, I played that game when I was around 12 years old. I think so. I was around 12 years old. And what always stand out to me was that Shiva and Sindel sounded similar to
Right.
me,
Right.
even at that point. But I
Right.
mean, I never really cared to look up voice actors and anything. I just wanted to play the game. But after a couple of years, when I started, with voiceover and whatnot, I searched it up and I was pleasantly surprised to see that you've done both characters.
Okay. Little backstory.
So
Little backstory.
yeah.
Again, it was one of those things where I show up without knowing what I'm doing. Never saw a Mortal Kombat thing. I saw it later and was frankly shocked at all the blood and the gore and how they could rip, from the head and separate at the spine. And it was like, I never knew
Uh-huh.
it. I never knew any of that and was never shown any of that. So I did Sindel, and there was like six producers over here off, behind a window. And I was kind of had these soundboards surrounding me a little bit, and it was awkward. But we had the exertions, and these are some of the oddest exertions. I never knew anything about her hair or, you know what I mean, anything that she could do attack wise. But they would say, okay, uh, kind of like light, medium, and heavy this, and we need you to do a somersault and a roll, and then this and that. So there was some new things added. And then they said, okay, we're going to do Sindel, just be a little bit deeper. Oh, huh? They didn't even want to have me try something with texture or anything like that. So I think I was kind of limited by the director to just do a little bit lower, or I would have liked to sound a lot different. So we finished Sindel without any exertions. And I said, uh, doesn't she fight? Oh, yeah. Can you do exertions in a different voice? Well, yeah. And they were so shocked. And I did them that when I left, their sound guy came chasing after me to get my business card because he said nobody else has ever done that. And this is Technicolor Studios, one of the largest in Los Angeles that did major movies and everything. Unfortunately, they have gone by the wayside, like many, sound, I think whatever it was. A lot of big studios have closed, but it was shocking for me to find out that people couldn't do exertions in a different voice.
Mm-hmm. You haven't really done any other Mortal Kombat games after the ninth one. I think
Right.
it was, yeah. Um, but it happens in the industry, but I was a bit sad to find out. I mean, in Mortal Kombat 10, of course, Sindel doesn't appear too much, and she's not a playable character, actually.
Well,
But
was it 11 or whatever, where Mara Juno took my
yes,
place?
that was the 11th
Hmm.
one and the brand new one that came out about 2 years ago. So she's done Sindel for two games at this point.
She's a lovely person. I know her. She's part of my talent pool too. So more power to her.
Hmm. I kind of like it actually. I find it funny because I've noticed some similarities. I'm not sure if she tried to or if she got inspired by your version of Sindel. It's possible, but yeah, I was pleasantly surprised to find out that you actually know Mara,
Oh yeah,
and it's nice.
she's a very talented actress.
The difference between Shiva's and Sindel voice, if you just do one line.
Sindel, like this, and then open the back of the throat more for Shiva. I think that's kind of what you're getting at.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, even after when did that game come out? 2012,
I
2013 or
I'm
so?
bad at chronology. I have no idea.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a decade for sure, but you still got it, and
Okay.
that's what's so much fun because there's many voice actors who've done characters a decade ago or so, and they find it difficult to do the voice, or their voices have changed so
Changed.
much due to
Yeah.
aging,
Yeah.
like what we talked about before, that it's ridiculous
Right.
how similar you still sound. Like you sound the same,
Well,
and
thank you.
that's really
Appreciate that.
nice.
I know what's hard is when people cast kids. That's what happened in Sonic Adventure when for the first time, Sega wanted to cast a real kid for Tails. Most of the time, in Japan, they would have women doing the kids' voices, which happens. It should happen because, well, first of all, kids, they don't have the patience. You know what I mean? They may or may not be good cold readers. There's a lot of issues. They have to have their guardian there. Da, 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 da. So for the first time, they wanted to use real kids, and then we had to go through three different kids because each of those kids reached their maturity and could no longer sound like Tails. It would sound like a guy. You know what I mean? So we went
Hmm.
through two brothers and then Bill Corkery's son, William Corkery, for that. So yeah, males should never really try to do kids' voices because they either sound like Mickey Mouse or, it's hard once you reach puberty. But for women, I don't know. I just think, again, maybe it's lifestyle. Maybe it's just not using that voice for a while. So it's harder to get the vocal cords back in their right configuration. I don't know. So I can only speak for myself. I guess I'm lucky.
Well, have you worked with kids? Yeah, you did just say that you did, but
Hmm.
did you get to work with a lot of children over the years of your experience?
No. And it's been, again, it's very challenging. And I'd rather keep it all positive, you know what I mean? But like I said, the typical challenges are attention span, being able to take direction and have the voice control, because again, most are less experienced. Now, William Corkery and I think the two other, Connor the Connor brothers. The first one was a better actor than the second one, but again, it's just a matter of there's a lot of personality things that come in. So as a voice actor, as an adult, we can't bring any baggage. You know what I mean? We're
Mm-hmm.
expected to, when the mic is on, you perform. And even if Bubsy hurts my ears, I can only say, "Are you sure?" And yeah, okay. Just like with Medieval, they kept all the voices in that game, except they were redoing the narrative part that you hear when you open up a book to read some clue. And they brought me up again and they said, "We want a sports announcer." Huh? Like a radio puker. And I had no idea what this game was because later after I was done, they showed me how they had done all the graphics and it looked great. It's kind of like Edward Scissorhands meets whatever Disney. And so I recorded for about 10 minutes and I said, "This, are you sure we can't try something else?" And they said, "What ideas do you have?" "Well, maybe with or without a British accent, something like Linda Hunt." "Great, let's go with that." You know what I mean? So if you have kids, they're not going to have that idea again. And if you don't know if your series is going to come back again in the future, if you're working
Mm-hmm.
even with females, some females can't sound as young as they used to. So I think it's just kind of more chancy. Love to give everybody a chance, that's for sure. But there's a lot of disparity in the industry, such as, and I hope I don't offend anybody when I say this, um, the checking off the boxes. When you see an audition, we're open to binary, non-binary, any gender, da 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 da. But you have to be ethnically correct if it's a black person or an Asian person or Latino. They want you to be ethnically that race, even if they don't want an
Mm-hmm.
accent. But if you are that race, you are allowed to do Caucasian parts, no problem. Just like British people, they may want authentic British where there is no real such thing. You can have received pronunciation, which is like the dry BBC America type of sound,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
those guys, can do a wonderful job of sounding completely American. But with the American, they would kind of, oh, well, we don't want to offend any British people. So like when I did Professor Layton in The Curious Village as Luke Triton, I wasn't trying to do a Cockney accent. But when you saw later on the comparison of they hired a real person, I should say, a British person in Britain to do the British person, and she sounded like a girl. But the comments that you get from British people, if you were doing a British accent, is like it would shred you a new one. You know what I mean? It's sort of like makes me want to throw up. So there's a lot of hurdles that one has to kind of jump over.
I'm glad that we mentioned working with children and
Mm-hmm.
young people in general because um, do you attend cons, Comic Cons?
I will be attending my first con this August 15th and 16th called Sonic Boost, where they're going to bring back all like everyone. I mean, from Sonic Adventure, Adventure 2, plus some of the newer voice actors for the newer series and some of the designers, the artwork, the music people. That's what I do. What I've done in the past, since I have to take care of a diabetic cat with multiple medical needs and things of that nature, is I would do a few in-store signings, which means you have 4 to 6 hours and then it's done instead of having to go 2 days, that kind of thing. And the reason I don't go to cons outside of my area is simply that I don't have anybody to take care of all the animals that I take care of. And you have to like go
Mm-hmm.
on a plane, wait in an airport, and God knows now with TSA agents being few and far
Well, of
between,
course.
the wait on that and hotel stays and all that. It just not practical for me to do that, take care of my animals, and still run my business.
Oh, I understand. You've always had animals throughout.
Yes. But
Okay,
not all of
okay.
them have always had all the medical needs that my one animal now has. He has, cancer, diabetes, and blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of things I have to administer to him that I can't expect anybody that's a pet sitter to do 6 times a day or 9 times a day. So that's primarily why.
Well, we really hope that little Kiwi will get over this, and
Yeah.
yeah. To be fair, there's many pictures of you on the internet. Well, I guess I misjudged them. You were not on cons, you were on E3s or
Yeah.
some other events where
And you're
you
going to
would
talk about
wear,
my hats, right?
yeah, those beautiful hats, which
Yeah.
were, I believe, custom
Yeah.
made.
In Western Australia by Miranda Green Millinery, and she's a fantastic person that does so much for world stuff. She has published a book, and she's just fantastic. I was looking for something unusual, and if you go to a typical hat shop, it's just kind of bleh. Why did I want hats? Is because George Sanger, known as Fat Man, was at one of the first E3s that I went to. And he was wearing his cowboy hat and all of his cowboy decor. And I thought, that stands out. You'd remember that because he was dressed differently. And I don't mean cosplay, you know what I mean? I just mean just a simple hat, but it wouldn't be simple. I wanted something very big and exaggerated. And so I paid about $500 or $600 per hat. And I had about six made, I believe. So I would be recognizable. I have never worn those hats again, you know. So it was kind of expensive, but it was something that I stood apart. I hope that was the point of it. But I'm not necessarily a hat lady. It just was to get remembered as standing out from the crowd.
Well, that definitely worked out because if you search up Lani Minella, the first
Mhm.
images that pop up are the ones with you and their hats.
They called it a witchy hat. I think the one that pops up the first is the blue one, and I don't think you can
hmm
see that there was like she took some long feathers and cut them really close to the shaft, and at the end they were little triangles like arrows, but it didn't show up. They cut that off, and so people were, and it actually had big silk roses all over, and it had a long, big, wide ribbons, two of them hanging out down the back, but they didn't. Everything is cropped out, so it just. And I go, witchy hat, okay, if that's what you want to call it. But yeah, that was fun.
If you, well, you are gonna attend a con right now, soon, I believe.
I went in
Would you
August.
e would you ever wear a hat again?
I gave some thought to that. Should I wear a hat to this? It's sort of out of place because I was Rouge the Bat and Omo Chow, and it would be kind of like not them. It would be much more
hmm
mature to wear a hat. I could, but I don't think I will. I think I would because people often want pictures with me, and I think it would be kind of I don't know, would it be too presumptuous to wear a fancy hat to a con? What do you think?
Well, my personal thought is that those hats are so iconic, and
Hmm.
I think they really stand out, especially in on cons such as this will be, where there's thousands of people and it just really makes you stand out in the crowd. I think you should give it another thought, but
Well, the problem
at
is
the
though
end.
that I'm not in the crowd walking around. I am going to be at a booth. You know what I mean? It's just
Oh,
me and all the people that are signing, like all the Knuckles and Sonic and John St. John, all the people, Brian Drummond, Scott Dreyer, David Humphrey, all of us voice actors are going to be all in line at a booth. So we're not wandering around.
hmm
We are there. So we don't have to stick out. We've got our banner behind us that says my name and all these characters that I've done. So I don't know. I'll have to think about it. But I think the only hat that would maybe match Rouge a little is the big pink hat that had four different brims, and
hmm
it looked funky to me. But I'll think about it.
Okay, that sounds great. So John St. John will be there too,
Hmm.
right?
Yes, you will.
And who else out of the cast will be there?
I think. Well, some people have died. Like the Dean Bristow and Steve Brody, and so I don't know. They have asked a couple of people. I think maybe Pete Capella, which played Silver in the for the game Mariah Angeline. She is or Good. I think that's her new last name. She played a small part, and I think that William Corkery and all the team, Mark Biaggi and Bill Corkery, all the people that were part of the adventure that are still alive, the
hmm
adventure to Heroes in Battle. They will all be there.
Oh, that's wonderful. Will there also be like a live panel or
I don't know. I
something of
haven't been
that sort?
asked about the panel. I know that they're going to have live uh, concerts, Saturday
hmm
night, which I won't be attending. but they're going to have entertainment. And like I said, a lot of people that were quote unquote designers that I have never met, they're getting all those people, and they're going to have the big statues that they designed through 3D printing. Those will probably all be there too. Those are fabulous.
Oh, wow. Well, this is great to hear, really, because I'm sure many people will be attending the con and are very looking forward to meeting
Hmm.
you and the rest of the cast. But there's one last question.
Okay.
Recently, you became, or well, you got an award for being the most prolific voice actress.
Prolific voice actress in video games. Prolific female voice actress in video games.
And you
Yeah.
replaced Jennifer Hale, I believe.
So it seems. I only learned about this by seeing somebody post a little tiny paragraph of what that title was on Facebook, and they tagged me. I went, "Oh, are you kidding?" Uh, okay. I never knew, but they got the number of credits wrong, which you thankfully helped me correct on Wikipedia. I appreciate that. But I mean, I don't know who nominated me. And it took a lot for my LA agent to try and even get me the framed, Guinness Book certificate. But then I started getting these notifications of people trying out to be in Guinness Book, people that had the longest fingernails, the dog that could pop the most balloons in a minute, somebody that could balance dice in a glass tube. I'm thinking, wow, uh, kind of strange, to be amongst those winners, but I'm grateful. And I still wish I could find out who nominated me in the first place. But yeah, that's quite a unique thing, isn't it?
Well, indeed. And I'd like to congratulate you again from my end. And I'm sure a lot of people who will listen to this will not know of this information. And I'm sure they will appreciate. Because, I mean, you've done so many titles over the years, really over 500 titles. I mean, guys, if you want, I can link in Lani's portfolio. But yeah, there's a lot of titles.
Well, I want to say this.
And
I want to clarify something. Unlike some people, I have never just cast myself in order to be that quantity. You know what I mean? Like when we're casting a game, I have to try out just like anybody else. And I don't arbitrarily cast myself. I just want to clear that up because you would think because I am a casting director, maybe that's how I got so many titles. Because no, there's a lot of games that I've done that I haven't done any of the casting for. So I would love to have people realize that I had to try out just like everybody else.
that was, I think, important to mention too, yeah.
Hmm.
Because I'm sure there are some people who would think of it that way.
Right.
Well, Lani, I really appreciate you coming on for this episode.
My
And
pleasure.
if there is anything that you think Sindel or any other characters you've done could say about the VŌC podcast, what would it be?
The VŌC Podcast. Here, there, everywhere. Tell all your friends. And listen.